Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast with host Kat Ward. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Paranormal Heart Podcast. This episode is streaming. Oops, sorry. I kind of lost some things here. Good grief. I apologize. So tonight's episode is pre-recorded, streaming on United Public Radio Network 107.7 near Orleans. I'm your host, Kat Ward. Thank you so much for tuning in. Folks, I have a great return guest tonight. I'm so excited. Steve Surfaro. Steve is a public safety tech consultant and futurist. He leads the public safety interest group for the Security Industry Association. Tonight, Steve will be discussing UFOs and drones. So please help me welcome Steve Surfaro. Welcome back, Steve.
Hey, Kat. Wonderful to see you. And hello from sunny Arizona. And sorry it's 80 degrees here and it's not where you are.
No, it's not.
We wish for snow, but
it's still pretty mild here, though. It's like 34 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's really warm for this time of year.
May you continue to have a great mild spring.
Thank
it's
you.
Wonderful that you have me back. It's like the tech side of paranormal is going to, as our inflation subsides, people are going to be very, very interested in this because there is a spiritual revival happening and, people are taking different directions. So you're going to be very busy, young lady.
I hope so. Oh, and let me say Happy New Year, too.
Oh, yeah. It's almost there. But, we always hold our breath for New Year's in the U.S. because Times Square is such a nexus and a melting pot. We never know what's going to happen. Is the ball going to make it?
Oh no. Yeah.
Or is it going to fall off? It's amazing. Just a quick side note. So the best job in the world that I had, which took me to Japan like about 10 times, was
nice.
Working for Panasonic. And we had the contract to take care of one Times Square, which essentially is a hollow building, and it's only a structure that exists just to house all of these different screens and the ball.
No way.
What we call it these days,
Yeah.
And it's amazing, and people would be seen dangling off of it every so often to repair some of the tiles and things like that. But what we would do is also have some camera technology there looking around just to make sure that nobody has left an unintended package.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, one Times Square. Those were the days.
Wow.
Yeah, not good if you have fear of heights.
No. I mean, watching footage back in the day when they used to build skyscrapers, it makes me scared just to look at that. They didn't have any safety harnesses or anything. They're just walking across. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the interesting thing is when you go inside the building, you look up and most of it's hollow. So you would expect a building with a lot of floors. No, it doesn't have very many load-bearing floors, so you always are hanging out on the stairs. Stairwells are always the safest place to be, in New York City. It's I shouldn't say that. If the stairwells have security in it, they're safe. Oh God, I got caught in that one.
So before we get into our topic, could you tell the listeners or remind the listeners just a little bit of a background about yourself?
Well, I really started as an instrumentation engineer, and that's doing things like going to Sandia National Labs and helping them out with some very interesting projects that are declassified now. But what they would do is do things like you remember the Scud missile? Yeah. So it was always the Scud versus our Patriot missile. So they would launch the Patriot missile, and I was involved in a lot of the testing. So I would go back and forth to there from the East Coast where I was living at the time. And from there, I started working in the old World Trade Center and became a security consultant and wound up doing a few projects there. Got through the 90s and 2000s. I was there 9/11. And it's amazing. I've been primarily into public safety, and really I've gotten into it since our nation's worst mass casualty event, which was the Mandalay Bay shooting. And what happened was right at the day after, I wound up appearing on national television, CNBC, and it's kind of interesting. A lot of folks decide to just toe the line and follow the host and just what they want to talk about. And I was supposed to be there as just a technology person, but little did they know that I was very much involved in public-private partnerships, which I still am. And a lot of our projects were situations in which the user wouldn't have to pay for any of these entry screening technologies, and one of them was up and coming and is now very, very mature in weapons detection. And I basically told them, there was the security director for the Hard Rock Casino at the time. I'll never forget the look on his face. And I said, you, sir, could have taken advantage of that, as well as the MGM. And, that kind of started a little bit of a, not an argument, but it started to get a little challenging for them because, hey, they were employed, to protect and to know about that stuff. But, it's what happens in a lot of those cases is people choose to forget. And only those folks that are, have actual experience in the field, like an ex-law enforcement professional that I knew for many years in a Homeland Security program for first responders. His name is Jack, and that's how I got involved with doing the security for Super Bowl Live. And I basically asked him one question: when are we going to do this? Meaning, this was deploy a comprehensive security system for the Super Bowl that was coming to town in Houston. and it's interesting. At the time, they were praying that the Dallas Cowboys weren't going to win the division, because if they were to win the division and the Super Bowl would be in Houston, it would essentially be 2 million more people at that
wow.
Taylor Swift was performing, Beyonce Knowles, Solange Knowles. It was very interesting. And I provided you with a link to some of those pictures if any of your viewers want to take a look at what happened. And, we were very, very successful. No casualties, and two casualties averted. And the technology that was used to avert the casualty, someone was having a heart attack and somebody was coming to their aid. And the thermal imaging cameras that we used from a roof was, we're able to essentially see through a crowd and see where the person having the heart attack was.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that same technology would have prevented Mandalay Bay.
That's crazy.
So I'm still involved with the public-private partnerships, but I'm also a DIYer, and hopefully some of the business that I'll get some funding for will help what we last talked about a couple of years ago, which was what we call sensor fusion, or the ability to see everything that us and animals see and hear in different spectra, which essentially will help us better detect the paranormal, and anywhere and anytime. So
I look forward to that.
Yeah, so do I.
I mean, can you imagine? Can you just imagine having like a pair of glasses, for example, during a paranormal investigation, and you can actually see what animals are seeing, like in their spectrum.
And it's so great that you said that. And it's really, we used to call it sensor fusion, but now it's called multi-spectral perception. So emphasis on the perception, because you know what, everything that is being developed that will be at CES, very first week of next year, is only a week and a half away, which I'll be going to, and that will essentially allow, and it exists. What you're talking about actually exists, and it just exists in a few different packages. And believe it or not, and I think I told you about this, audio-wise, that tech is inadvertently built into the new Apple AirPods Pro version 2. Because what they do is, have you seen that commercial where somebody's wearing them as a hearing aid? And it's
No, I haven't.
Yeah, their child is starting to play the guitar or piano, I forget which, and the mom says to her husband, knowing that he's partially deaf, she says, "Put in your AirPods." It's like, well, this is actually a new feature. What it does is it has an AI algorithm to detect voices and notes, things that are generated by human beings, and screen out and recognize things that are not generated by humans.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, could be spirits. It could be crowd noise. It could be automobiles. But in an inside environment, it would essentially be ambient noise, which is the realm that we listen to EVP about.
Mm-hmm.
And what Apple does is the opposite of what another company actually does already. This company, FemtoSense, that is able to subtract that background noise and allow you to play it. So you can decide whether you want to hear somebody that's speaking or playing the piano,
Mm-hmm.
or a particular machine that's starting to malfunction, or just hear what's going on in the background. And the sampling rate is very high, so that it's not, one of the things, if you're an audiophile, that you always want analog, which again is kind of like the realm that EVP, audio EVP, exists in. You most hear it in devices that have those tube amplifiers that your dad is hoarding.
Yeah.
You'll get some of those. And it makes it, those make it so sensitive and to it. But these hybrid digital and analog technologies allow you to listen to things that you wouldn't normally listen to, in your day-and-day environment. So stay tuned, that's coming. But it's here today. It's actually here today, but it's used for different other things.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're used as a hearing aid. AirPods too.
Huh.
That's funny. Best Buy in the States was running a special $100 off. They'll have it again in January, I'm sure. But it's,
I've obviously heard of the AirPods, but I didn't know the capabilities of it. That's pretty amazing. And then those for the visual, is that a pair of glasses, or is it?
Yeah.
To be able to. Oh wow.
So what happens And again, it's like if these folks reported to me in development, I would basically say, oh, just throw that sensor display in with the audio headphones and the
Mhm.
audio processor secretly, and then basically repackage it and market it for for the paranormal community.
Yeah.
But the reality is that uh, every company that is involved with inspecting electrical substations uses things like this. And what glasses like that too, they're like imagers of what a series of thermal cameras look for.
Okay.
And the cameras, they're just wearing the cameras
Hmm.
on them, just like a body worn camera, just like law enforcement
Yep.
would wear a body worn camera. But the difference is that they're able to see the failure of some of these switch gear electricity producing and regulating systems before they fail. And they're most likely located near stadiums. The one that I'm thinking about serves um, what was the Houston basketball team, the Toyota Center, and the Central Business District in Houston. And it's a relatively small substation. It's like a quarter of the square footage of a typical hotel.
Hmm.
And all the maintenance people do is they just walk around with these on, and they see where the hot spots are and report it back. Now, if they wanted to, they could literally go back, when things are friendlier and less noisy, both electronically wise
Hmm.
and video wise, and turn off the extreme heat sensing and look for cool areas. Areas where there's transient breezes or, which typically, I don't know, sometimes they're associated with spirits,
Yep.
Um, you never know, though. Somebody might be, a hot one. It
You
might
never
be,
know. Yeah.
but, this is where we have what we need to see into that area and perceive it better. It's just, uh, 95% of the world has not experienced, a paranormal experience, themselves. But when they do, they'll be looking for answers.
And let's hope that all this tech will be better priced,
Yes.
because I'm sure it's pretty expensive right now.
Yeah, I've seen the folks that like sell fake EVP listening devices, stuff that
Mm-hmm.
just produces static,
Mm-hmm.
and might capture a transient spirit here and there, but it's not optimized for it. Uh, Sell these things for $400 to $500. Oh my god! And they're all they are is like an old analog stereo, that was high quality one made in the Canada, US, or Japan that somebody tweaked, got it at Goodwill for $30.
Yep.
And it's
Well, a lot of people ask me what's a good paranormal equipment site to go to, and I tell them, but I said a lot of times, like up here in Canada, all you have to do is go to like your local Canadian Tire store, because a lot of the paranormal equipment that we use is not meant for paranormal investigating. It's made for something else, and we just use that, like at the FLIR. We use that in investigations, but it's not meant as a paranormal piece of equipment. And then, but if it goes to these sites, then you got to be paying an awful lot more money, because they're advertising as paranormal equipment, specialized. You just have to go to your local hardware store a lot of times.
it's amazing, but it's readily available, and
Yeah.
it's or it could be already installed in your home. If any of you folks listening to this have an old analog intercom system or something that pipes, your analog music through many different speakers, and they're usually like they usually have a lot of dials on them. They look old, and they were typically used to broadcast AM and FM radio to, through the house. Of course, these days, we set up multiple audio streams like Sonos or Apple, or whatever, whatever your flavor is these days. But those that have that, you can use it to pipe out your music. And then at 2 a.m., shut your music off and turn up the amplifier a bit. Look for a station with very little noise and then listen.
That's what I do with the vehicle radio whenever they're calling for thunder showers. You put it on an AM band that's quiet, and you can hear the static of the lightning strikes, which is pretty neat. My dad taught me that when I was a kid.
I never
has to be AM. Oh, really? Oh, wow. Yeah. The closer the electrical charges are, the louder it gets. So you'll just hear this loud crackle, like in the speaker. It's really neat, but it has to be AM. It doesn't work with FM.
So now, what's really interesting is if you're near a lightning storm, obviously take shelter.
Yes. Please.
There's the static electricity, the fields of static electricity and electromagnetic fields are well enhanced. And that's a great opportunity, to see if a visitor, literally sparks some interest.
No pun intended.
I mean, you're not gonna see, like actual, fireflies or something like that. But what you'll hear it, and it'll disturb the air around it. So that, you see, the use of multiple sensors in that situation. If you have the recipe, and they call it a recipe for some reason, this is what's used in a lot of digital cameras. And there's my the sun doesn't look too bad, does it?
Okay. Oh, no, you're good.
So what happens these days with digital cameras, folks that are in digital photography have these digital recipes where they take all of the different visual sensor elements like ISO, which is the film sensitivity or the sensitivity of the imager to light, the color palette that you're using, what you want, like your different colors to translate into. And it's interesting, that recipe has its corresponding aspects in paranormal. And that's what's going to help this business. And it's going to be a business. And I believe that if we weren't in an inflationary economy the way it was over the last 3 years, we would have seen some really interesting products by now. Yep. So we just took a detour, but they'll be back into development.
So before we get into the drones and UFOs, could you briefly tell the listeners about your EVP experience? Yeah,
so it's my wife and I had a really interesting year. And back in April, we got a disturbing call that her stepmom had passed away, but the way she passed was pretty horrible. She was found in our home, and somebody was supposed to be taking care of her. And oops, Finley needs some water. Sorry, Finley. my dog was looking for some water. Sorry.
It's okay.
So she passed without care. So it was a horrible passing, and almost law enforcement categorized it as manslaughter that really couldn't be proven. The home smelled so bad because she had stuff in her refrigerators that had spoiled, and it was all just so unsettling. It was incredible. But for 3 months, we went back and forth and helped, sort out her estate and cleaned out items. And it was at the very end. It was very interesting. At the very end, when we were ready to leave, my wife decided for some reason to turn on the central music system that she had. And this central music system was very much like I described, which was an analog tuner, AM/FM, and an audio intercom with sound throughout the home. And we were just about to leave, and she said, "Oh, let's try this out." Sometimes it's just the most innocent things where this happens. And she turns it on, and she said, "I can't tune in anything. The antenna must be down," or something like that. And she started tuning, going to the high frequencies, the low frequencies. Started going to the high frequencies, and then she left it at a particular one where it was kind of quiet. And I swear it was like that Michael Keaton movie. It was essentially almost like that. She heard like an increase in noise, but almost like a fleeting, distant voice. And it was kind of scary. I said, "What was that?" She said, "I don't know." Because she's never had an experience like this. And she started talking. And she said, "Barbara, is that you?" And then we would hear it again ramp up. But there was kind of like a delay associated with it, kind of like a 10-second delay, which was kind of indicative of somebody that had passed that was trying to figure out how to make the noise or whatever, or disturb the environment. And it was that 10-second delay always. And I remember watching, things like Paranormal Investigators, etc. And there would always be this kind of delay associated, and it was exactly that. And the noise level would go down, and then you'd hear something very strange, but it would sound like a distant voice.
Wow.
You couldn't make out what it was, but it did sound like a voice. And we tried to go back and this was actually at about 5 p.m. our time, Arizona time, and 5 p.m. our time, there was actually less electrical noise around, so it was actually a good time to do this. And we said, we got to come back here. Ironically, the house sold. So we couldn't get back there.
Oh, that's too bad.
But I can tell you that we can go back there. I am sure that she's still there. And, we can ask the owners, the new owners, basically, have you heard anything strange? And I'm sure the answer is going to be yes. Whether there's some other manifestation.
If you do find out, please let me know.
Yeah. Oh, we will. I'm sure that I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to do it. Her place was not that far, but she was always a very, how do I say this? She took advantage of many of the systems. She was an attorney, um, a civil rights attorney, but she also was kind of she would live above her means, and she when we took a look at her finances, we discovered that she had committed some insurance fraud, etc.
Huh.
So she was clearly um, a spirit that was not restful. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that's going to be around for quite a while. It's yeah. So just
At
like
least
in the movie.
at least residual energy would be there for sure, not just in a intelligence. Good grief! But yeah, wow. I'm sorry you guys had to go through that though.
Oh, that was yeah, that was a little crazy. My wife gets obsessed with some of these things, and she would find herself, just going there, and it was kind of interesting. Maybe it was her stepmom, making her go there. Who knows? But
Yep,
she was
could be.
always wanting to return there. You
Hmm.
know,
Interesting.
yeah, she loved her pets, and gave part of the estate to an animal shelter, which was kind of nice.
Nice. Yeah.
So, yeah, a real definitive proof that the use of analog equipment that you might have lying around works.
Yeah. Well, they say that the more simplistic the piece of equipment, the better it is for paranormal investigating. A lot of times.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's really really surprising how simple it can be.
Mm.
Don't think that probably the best place is, as you said, some of the places where you wouldn't expect to find something useful in paranormal investigations. And it's the worst places are the ones that heavily advertise. you know, it's that heavily advertise and maybe don't have good feedback.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or suppress their feedback. Who knows? But it should not cost a lot to do it. That's the bottom line. You can.
Agreed. Yeah.
Do you guys have Goodwill
Yes, we
stores?
do.
You do. Okay,
Mhm.
so you can get a lot of these older radios, the non-digital ones that are probably about 50 years old.
Mhm.
On high quality ones that are made in the U.S. or Canada or Japan, that are tuners or receivers, and they're there. It's kind of
Mm.
funny because they believe in supply and demand, and a lot analog devices are starting to ramp up in price. So where the digital ones that are contain a lot more features that are made more
Mhm.
recently go for like 12 US dollars.
Mhm.
The ones that you need are about $50 now. And that's expensive at Goodwill.
Yeah. No kidding.
So you
But
kind of,
we're
yeah,
halfway through, and we still need to get to the drones and UFOs.
let's do it. So
Okay.
my
I could,
question is,
just like last time, I could just go on for hours with you.
it's fun. It's always a great conversation with you. So probably about what was it, about a month ago, they were beginning to have sites of what people would think were conventional drones in and around the Jersey Shore area, or around areas of industrialized areas in New Jersey, and some of them were adjacent to some military installations. Some were around fields, etc. And what would happen is reports, as people started to get interested in it, they would fly their own drones and see what was actually happening, and see if they could, get a visual line of sight
Mm-hmm.
to see what the actual drone looked like. They could never get close. They could never get close because their monitor would just go out, and it's illegal in this country to fly what you call BVLOS, or beyond visual line of sight. They don't allow you to do that. Only the military has that capability, and it would be a very, very sophisticated drone, something that would probably weigh a great deal, and could potentially crash very easily. But they would never be able to get close until the first behavior was they would lose their visual. The second would be that their quad rotor copter would start failing. It would essentially stall out, and they would have to engage the back home function, and they would just get out of there because they didn't want to lose their drone. And in some cases, when they approached it and they started getting interference, the drone would essentially it would be hovering what they would call a UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
The drone that they were trying to look at would stop hovering and then literally just accelerate away at an amazing speed.
Do we have that technology?
Yeah. So this is it's called tilt rotor. So the differences, and these are we call them the Osprey drone, and this is kind of a 15-year-old technology, and essentially it's a quad rotor helicopter, quadcopter, so to speak. So you have 4 rotating propellers or air surfaces, and 4 of which the rotors could rotate 90 degrees and essentially turn it into a propeller-driven aircraft. So it could move laterally very fast, or somewhat fast. The reality is that mechanism is very bulky, very heavy, and obviously the 4 motors to turn these rotors together with a payload, created a battery life of literally only maybe 20 minutes. So their missions would be very, very short.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't see what we would call a persistent threat in these cases. The only way to accommodate that would be to have ultra efficient props and essentially rotors that could be combined with another method of propulsion. It just so happened that the first of the 3 hypotheses that I came up with, and I'll tell you what the 3 are. The first is China. The second is aliens, essentially unidentified people or unidentified craft that maybe were there all along that appeared with advanced countermeasures. And thirdly, our own military that had gotten some intelligence about, a misplaced weapon of mass destruction. And, the third category, of the third hypothesis is actually still a very real one. And I believe it has a 10 to 15% likelihood because the search pattern is very, very complete. It's a legacy search pattern. It's like if you were looking for something that you lost, you're essentially doing mapping. You're using a technology called LiDAR that is actually in your own late model iPhones. It does face detection. LiDAR sends out these lasers that get bounced off and return, and the rate at which they get bounced off, they form what's known as a point cloud, or a reference, a reference of the terrain and perhaps any objects underneath. And this type of drone imaging, together with the visual, creates our mapping. This is how we do our mapping these days of different farms, etc. See how the crops are, etc., and look for people or things that we've lost. So that's, in my opinion, that's kind of like 14%. The 2% is probably some alien aircraft. I don't believe that we would be able to sense them or see them, but the fact that they move so quickly is an indication. They seemingly appear and then disappear. The first one, though, has a very strong backing. And back in September of 2023, there was a Singapore air show where China, this one private fleet, drone fleet, actually was very, very proud. They came up with the first prototype of this tilt wing aircraft called the D6000, and I can provide a link for that. But this aircraft, and it's actually on my X feed. You can actually go to the X feed and see what it is. I'll repost those for your readers. Okay. But they were very, very proud. This is a massive, massive aircraft, but it's very light. It's designed to support and house 15 people, and has an extraordinarily long battery life. Where it could fly with that payload fully loaded for at least 45 minutes. Now, if you think about it, if an aircraft like that has a 45-minute flight time, it has to be launched from something. If it's not ours, and it's not launched from a terrestrial launch point or airport or air park or drone park, then it has to be launched from something at sea. Simultaneously, with the release of this advanced tilt rotor, multi-propulsion, high battery life device aircraft, which, by the way, has countermeasures, which would explain, the radio of state troopers going out, their inability to track their GPS systems going way out of whack.
It's a type of jamming system.
Yeah, essentially a jamming system, a countermeasure, and in the very least, something like an energy pulse device that would disable something. But the Chinese have introduced the first multi-level, multi-control center drone aircraft carrier.
Really?
And it just so happens that it pairs extremely well with this. It's made by the same, essentially operated by the same company, the same agency within the Chinese government. A lot of those agencies are very, very much related, but the People's Army did not want to be directly associated with. So they had this other agency, quote unquote, private company, build in a shipbuilding yard this aircraft carrier. And it's amazing. It kind of looks like a mini destroyer vessel, but it's a cross between a regular aircraft carrier and a mini destroyer. The reason why I say that is because an aircraft carrier has multiple command centers because they have multiple runways.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the first of its type that could be floating for an extended period of time, have multiple solar recharging capability, countermeasures, could appear much, much smaller than it is, and have 2 control towers. So it would have the drones that would have their batteries exhausted of needing a charge, set of runways dedicated to that. Incoming would go into either a conveyor or elevator down to the subterranean levels where the batteries would be changed out, moved on an assembly line, which would then go to the ascending elevator where they would be launched. And this could go on for days or weeks. And I'm just really shocked that we haven't set up, or we haven't told the public that we've set up long-range LiDAR or long-range radar, which we have.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we do have, or that is still in testing, are what we call drone constellations that essentially are paired to a pilot, like today's F-16s or F-17, or the latest version of the Joint Strike Force aviation aviator is essentially now going to be deployed with a pilot that fuels and supports a constellation or group of drones that essentially will reduce the time of refuel so that we can bridge that gap and meet the challenge of the Chinese Navy. And the reason for this is we only have like a 900-mile range, even if we're, so that we can safely return our jets. So that is well beyond the envelope of what we need to be a threat to Chinese aircraft carriers. So essentially what we want to do is to have these drones take up the next 2,000 miles, to be able to meet that threat and be able to sacrifice some of these drones. Yeah, they're a couple $1 million each, but we can sacrifice them.
Yeah.
And they're multi-propulsion. So they are jet and rotor powered as well. So they could hover and they could move very, very quickly. So in the same realm, what we could have done, or what maybe we did it, maybe we have, and that's maybe why you're not seeing this in the news anymore. But we could have launched a constellation of drones from and controlled by a series of aircraft to determine where this drone carrier is. And that's the key, because the drones themselves are incredibly agile. They have the capability of moving extremely quickly and essentially evading and becoming invisible to folks. And there is one Congress member that claims that he has an inside source in naval intelligence that backs up this. And it might be an Iranian version or operated by, but essentially it is these new products from that factory in China.
Well, my question is, if it is from another nation, why didn't the U.S. shoot them down?
Yeah, so they're large.
How big are they? Like the size of a vehicle?
Yeah, they are. Some of them are designed to house 15 people,
Okay, yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
and
Yeah.
some of them are designed to hold only 3 with a separate payload. So think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe these are the China's own sorties to test out this delivery mechanism.
Yep.
So it was reported that a number of these drones have different sizes, and that would fall in line.
Mm-hmm.
But if you shoot one of these down,
You don't know what it's
essentially,
carrying.
yeah, I mean, it could be carrying human souls on board, which would be, potentially an act of war.
I was thinking more like bioweapons or anything like that. So if you shoot it down, then it's going to.
And that's the second. That's
Yeah.
the second concern.
Yeah.
Nuclear fission material.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they are delivering some of these items. Maybe they are dropping off some essentially bioweapons or EM generated weapons, and it just reeks of some different modes. Here we have a physical incursion into our airspace.
Mm-hmm.
Before, we had a physical incursion high altitude with the Chinese balloon that was primarily listening to different frequencies. So it was hovering over the nation's primary launch points of our nuclear arsenal.
Hmm.
So they wanted to gather data and transmit it back to the mainland. And we stupidly allowed them to proceed, to the East Coast. It's incredible that we allowed that to happen. That we should have shot down way earlier,
Mm-hmm.
because all that was, and yeah, that was much, much bigger. It was essentially 3 times the size of a F-22 Raptor, which was what shot it down. But the reality is that the Raptor's own Sidewinder missiles could be fired very, very quickly and could take out the payload first and then the balloon second. So it would minimize the disruption. And they could have done some evacuation in and around the area. But for some reason, it was ignored.
Yeah.
And it became the joke of the nation. In fact, I had a friend that created these model die-cast collectibles of the Chinese balloon, and he actually sold them for $100 each.
No way.
In different colors.
Jeez.
I think I have a picture of it on Facebook. I'll include that on my X post. Remember these? Yeah. But we'll know what it is, I'm sure, over the next month.
Now, is that because that your president-elect now, once he's officially in, that he's going to make sure that everyone finds out what it is? Or
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. He's going to allow full transparency. If it continues to be unknown, and I'm sure they'll mysteriously cease, but I will post the pictures of the drone carrier, which is amazing. It's purposely built for this. It had been sitting in a ship dock, and naval intelligence had been tracking it for a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. And they didn't know what it was going to launch until that Singapore air show. And the capability, the high-speed capability of this new drone that has come out, and the battery life. Keep in mind that China has the technology of batteries. So, we're getting on 10 minutes in, or are we?
Yeah, we're about almost 5 minutes out.
Okay,
so you can go for a couple more minutes.
Okay, so I'll say one thing. think about what Elon Musk has done. So he has come out with a battery technology. I believe it's called the 4160 battery that essentially replaced something that was essentially looking like a larger AA battery.
Okay. Yep.
And there were 4,000 of those larger than AA batteries in the original Model X or Model S, and it was replaced by this new 4160 battery. Hopefully, I have the numbers correctly. It might not, or 4680 battery, whatever. But that battery is a fatter battery, and it is being produced both in the United States and China. We don't have the capability here in the United States to keep up with that level of production. China is already using it in their mass transit vehicles, which is a fantastic way for them to test the life of that. So they have the battery, and it's interesting, that advanced battery technology, which allows a Tesla vehicle to triple its range, is considered legacy. So the Chinese might be actually on their third generation of this battery. And if you think about it, that would make a lot of sense, because for the ability for this air vehicle to stay in the air 3 times as long as something with a comparable payload, it's making sense now, at least to me.
Well, Steve, thank you so much. Like I said, we could have gone for hours more. But would you like to let the listeners and viewers know where they can find you?
Yes, the best way to find me is at Steve Surf, SteveSurf, on X or Twitter, as some people used to like to call it. And just DM me, if you want something specific, or see my posts, follow me, whatever. And it helps everybody if you do a follow. I do have a YouTube channel, but it's kind of inactive. I do most of my postings on X and LinkedIn and Facebook. Although LinkedIn is my last name, Surfaro, Surfaro, and you can see more of the professional stuff there. But you'll see more of the current stuff at Steve Surf on X, and I'll also post those same Google Drive links from City of Houston's, Fan Fest, from the Super Bowl. Might be interesting for you to take a look. But you'll also see those posts of what I think is 85%. I'm 85% sure of the drone and the drone carrier. Oh my God, the drone carrier. Maybe that's why the Donald wants to buy the Panama Canal.
Oh, yeah, you never know. In Canada.
I didn't say it. I held myself back from a 51st state joke.
Oh, gee. Not going to happen, but you never know. Well, thank you again, Steve. I really appreciate this. Hang tight. I'm going to say my farewells to the viewers and listeners, and I'll jump back in. There you have it, everyone. So thank you so much to my special guest tonight and UPRN 107.7 New Orleans. Remember, if you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe. To be a guest on the show, or if you have a guest or topic in mind, or you just want to say hello, drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. Until next time, everyone, much love to you all.